One more loop. That's the driving force behind Arkane Studios' brand new game. It's an addicting combination of think, plan, and execute. But does that make it a good game? And is it worth the AAA price tag? Hey there friends, it's Codiak here, one half of the team behind Legacy Gaming, and today we're diving in to check out one of the most ambitious games of 2021, Deathloop. Parity is an issue that's plagued the video game industry for some time. If you've played any modern game, something from the last 5 to 10 years, you most likely can trace that game back to some previous title that's had a major influence on the design, systems, and gameplay. This happens more often than many of us would like to admit, and while it's not bad, it definitely bogs down the evolution of video games as a whole. But occasionally, when the stars align, something fresh manages to hit the mainstream, and that's exactly what we're talking about today. Enter Deathloop, a game I've been interested in since it was revealed back in 2019. By this point, you have no doubt heard about Arkane Studios' latest game, but for anyone that hasn't been following along, let's kick this thing off as we always do with a 30,000-foot view. Deathloop is an immersive sim, first-person shooter that blends elements of action platforming, puzzle solving, and stealth all in one. It's nearly impossible to genre-define this game because it's that unique, but it's not entirely new. If you played any of the Dishonored games, Deathloop will feel immediately familiar. Much of what made those games great worked its way into Deathloop, from the stealth takedowns to simple things like the health and energy UI design. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You play as Colt, a former member of the Eon Project that's trying to break the loop. What's the loop, you ask? Well, of course, we're not going to spoil that here. In fact, I'm going to do my absolute best to not spoil anything, because unraveling the game's many secrets and nuances are what makes it so intriguing. Colt wakes up every morning on the same beach, and it's then up to you to figure out where he goes, what he does, and who he kills. Your goal is simple: break the loop by killing the Visionaries, 8 twisted, deranged lunatics that control the island. Each Visionary has their own agenda, their own schedule, and each contains knowledge and power that you need to gain the upper hand. It may sound straightforward, but to align all of the pieces and kill all the 8 Visionaries in one day, you have to arm yourself with information, weapons, and abilities, and that is where the magic of Deathloop truly resides. A loop in Deathloop refers to one day on Black Reef Island. Each day stretches across 4 day parts: morning, afternoon, evening, and night. After completing the introductory mission, the game opens up and you're able to choose which of the 4 regions Colt visits, and when. It's a brilliant design because each area has different things going on during different parts of the day. No matter where you go, you're bound to pick up on some nugget of information, a new clue that will help you piece together the puzzle that is breaking the loop. One of the things I was most worried about before the game launched was how the developers were going to handle the barrage of information they were throwing at players. Whether it's an audio log providing some backstory on a Visionary, or a computer message filled with back and forth conversations between multiple parties, it's almost impossible to keep track of everything, but the game somehow manages to keep you focused on your objective. At any time, you can go into your journal and sift through the various clues that will help you formulate your plan of attack. It's easy to get overwhelmed by all of the information, but Arkane doesn't just leave you out in the cold. Using something called a lead system, you can trace the origins and progression of each independent major investigation. Is it hand-holding? Yes, to some extent, but it's absolutely essential to allowing players to actually enjoy the game without getting bogged down in all of that information. Everything that you find, from scraps of paper to journal entries to combinations to locks, are added to your journal. It's a progression system, and at the start of my adventures, I spent almost no time there, but as I started to figure out the secrets of the game, I realized just how essential it was, not only to beating Deathloop, but to keeping all of the various threads straight. All that information is broken down into categories, with leads being big picture things, discoveries being the important details that you need to keep close at hand, and documents, which are the carbon copies of things you find out in the world. Unraveling the mysteries of the island is the game, and while you never feel like you're completely helped by the devs, you're also never truly alone. Everywhere you look, Colt will see visions of words. They're often helpful when it comes to sneaking around, finding clues, or just aiding in your combat approach. It's an incredibly smart way to keep players on track without forcing them to do much of anything. Choice is an integral part of Deathloop, and while the game will guide you, you have to choose to be guided, and there's still plenty of problem solving you have to work out on your own. As I mentioned before, each day is broken into 4 day parts. Add into the mix the 4 maps, and the ability to go to any region at any time of the day, and there's a lot to uncover.
So the loops run from a control room, and this is too easy. Way too easy.
At its core, Deathloop is about analyzing your surroundings, figuring out what the next step is. But there's also plenty of action. The game is a first-person shooter, yes, but the way it approaches guns and combat is really clever. Instead of giving players a million options, the team strips those things back to the basics and force you to ask the question, what's the purpose of taking this particular weapon into each level? My personal favorite was the Spiker, a nail gun that's essential for killing enemies quietly. But others may prefer the Strelak 50/50, a damn good shotgun that's easily capable of ripping through a mob of Eternalists. Once again, it's about choice, giving players the tools to play how they want to match their playstyle. As someone that loves sniping, I found that was one of my least favorite guns in the game. Not because I woke up and decided I didn't like sniper rifles, but because the gun didn't match my playstyle, and since each option is specific to a certain style of combat, I chose something different. What I'm getting at is this: it's not about the guns. They work as intended, and they're actually pretty interesting, a nice change of pace from the lifelike weapons of modern-day shooters. They each feel uniquely their own, and I love that about the game, because they're not really the stars. The same could be said for the trinkets that allow you to improve your weapons. They aren't going to wildly augment your guns and playstyle, they just help bring your overall killing potential up based on how you like to fight. I think overall the same could be said for the powers, or slabs as they're known in the game. A lot of things have carried over from Dishonored, and there's nothing wrong with that. Shift was awesome back then, and it's still awesome now. You don't need to change something up just for the sake of changing things up. These are essential tools to getting around Black Reef and dealing with enemies, but they're just that. Tools to get the job done. Unlocking slabs is part of the initial challenge. Most of the visionaries have one on them, so by killing them, you can loot the slab and empower yourself for future runs. That is, if you protect them from the loop. The roguelite elements of the game start to creep in after the tutorial mission, and it's the secret sauce that allows players to get to a point where they're confident they can deal with the action, allowing them to focus on unpacking the mysteries of the game. Arkane wants you to succeed, even if they're creating a myriad of challenges for you to overcome. One of the first things you unlock is Reprise, a special slab that gives you a second chance at dealing with a scenario. If you get killed with the charge of Reprise, you rewind back to the point right before you made that fatal mistake. It's a clever way to encourage players to experiment, still punishing them for failing, but not outright discouraging risky behavior. When you die, you drop all of your Residium, an important resource you can use to infuse your weapons, trinkets, and slabs, allowing them to hold over when a day is over and the loop resets. This is the progression system that runs parallel to you figuring out what the heck you're doing on Black Reef, and it works. I did find that at a certain point I just stopped caring about Residium because I had perma-locked in the gear and abilities that I wanted. But for players that like experimentation, this will become something you focus on each and every loop. At some point, whether it's 5 hours into the game or 15, you'll reach a point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to do this. It's a really cool moment where the player realizes they're kind of in control, and that's when you start to peel back the layers of the onion. That's honestly the best analogy I've seen to describe this game. You start off completely overwhelmed with next to no weapons, power, and little to understand the world around you, but little by little, you learn about the different visionaries, their motives, the whole cadence of the island. It's a puzzle that fills in piece by piece, and when it finally dawned on me, I realized just how special this game really is.
For the last time, why can't you remember?
I don't know if you just give me a second.
Deathloop isn't just about telling one story, it's about telling a whole bunch of stories all at once. Each visionary has their own motivations, their own drives, and by snooping around the island, you get to reveal them for who they really are. Brilliant scientists, egomaniacs, some dude who cut out half his brain. It's a trip. Keeping all of this anchored, of course, is the loop, and Juliana, who acts as a pseudo-narrator alongside Cole. The constant back and forth is brilliant, the writing is sharp and witty, and the voice acting is top-notch, and while I don't usually mind if those things are a bit off, every single line in this game is a home run and really helps push the story forward. Juliana is the X factor, helping ground the story, but also providing some interesting twists into the gameplay. During a run, Juliana can invade, much like a Dark Souls game. While on the map, she's hunting you down, and that adds another layer of intensity to the mission. The cool thing is, players can actually take control of Juliana in a unique PvP-style situation. Using the in-game matchmaking system, you can queue up as the female assassin and insert yourself into other people's games as they try and break the loop, and I found that a lot of players online really enjoy this feature. If it's not for you, that's fine. You can simply set your game to private, which means an AI will control Juliana, but she'll still be there, hunting you down. You'll spend a good amount of time sneaking around alleys and climbing across rooftops as you try and learn about the uniquely independent visionaries that you have to kill. You want to talk about environmental storytelling? Deathloop absolutely nails it. No matter where you are on the island, no matter what time of day, you're experiencing the story, and that's not something many games do well. I really appreciated this the most while I was sneaking around. I'm not usually the stealth type, but the game makes it easy to want to investigate every nook and cranny. You'll learn things, experience micro-stories, all while informing what the heck you're actually doing on the island. It's masterful. Eventually, everything will click. I can't tell you when, I can't tell you why, but at some point, you'll just get it, and you'll fully wrap your head around what Deathloop is. Livid can attest to the fact that I genuinely had no idea what I was doing when I started the game, but after around 10 hours in, I was jumping across rooftops, laser focused on my goals. It was incredible. The sad thing is, I don't think everyone's going to experience that. Look, here's the truth. Is Deathloop a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10, a 5 out of 5, whatever the heck people on the internet use for ratings these days? Yes, and it's a game I wholeheartedly believe is worth your time, but there is a catch. This game is just not made for everyone, and you know what? I think that's something the developers knew going in. Since day one, people have not understood what Deathloop was about. Is it a shooter? Is it Dishonored 3? Is it a stealth game? The pieces just weren't lining up, and that's why I think, despite incredible reviews from people that spend their lives reviewing games, it's still not clicking with some people. Arkane Studios did their absolute best to make Deathloop casual friendly. Like I mentioned earlier, the investigative components are sharp, but if I put this game in front of my dad or our good buddy John, they just wouldn't be able to figure it out, and at $60, I don't know how many people are willing to risk a high price tag for an experience they might like. The game also launched with a few issues, specifically a massive stutter problem on the PC. This has been a top priority for the developers since launch, and by the time most people see this video, I think the issue will be resolved, but it's still worth pointing out. I also want to mention that enemy AI was something people seem to have a major problem with online. I found it pretty on par with what I experienced in Dishonored. It was relatively easy to stealth around and kill things without being noticed, but the difference this time around is that enemy difficulties scaled. As more visionaries are killed, the enemies become just a bit more challenging, and I definitely felt this. It's hard to quantify, but I thought the detection was right on the money, and so was the combat. On multiple occasions, I alerted everyone in an area, and I paid for it, and that's how it should be. Some people may find it too easy, others may find it too hard, but I think Arkane managed to split the difference. Where I think Deathloop will really find some true success is on Game Pass. Arkane Studios is owned by Microsoft now, something that happened mid-development, so I'd expect to see this game pop up as soon as the exclusivity period is over. It's a game worth checking out, it's addicting, and that sense of wanting to break the loop doesn't go away until the very end of the experience, and that's a testament to how masterful the game is from start to finish. Deathloop is absolutely 100% unequivocally a game every student of video games needs to check out. It may not be for you, it may not be your thing, but you owe it to yourself to see just how important this game is to the video game world at large. Hopefully we did our jobs and gave you a little better insight into the world of Deathloop. This is a game I'll remember for a long time, a game that was unafraid to take chances, and a culmination of nearly a decade of hard work by the Arkane Studios team. We're not paid by the developers to say these things, we didn't even get early access to the game, but I feel so strongly about the quality of Deathloop that I'm willing to put myself out there and say that yes, this game is absolutely worth your time. Anyways, friends, if you do still have questions, we are here to help. If you're on the fence, shoot me a message in the comments or on Discord, and I'd be happy to clear up any confusions and help you make a decision about this game. That's why we do these reviews. I also want to say, if you did like this video and you want to support the channel, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. We've got a lot of exciting content coming up this fall, and you do not want to miss out. Finally, if you like everything we're doing here at Legacy Gaming and you want to help us out even more, you can now do so by becoming a member. For just a couple bucks, you're helping evolve the channel and take our community to the next level. Check out the join button below to learn more. My name is Codiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.